Hey, what's going on, everybody? I got Mark here with me. How's it going, Mark?
Good. How we doing?
Sweet. We're doing good.
Doing good.
We're going to talk about another sweet podcast episode. So this one we wanted to, we were talking about how COVID has affected the construction industry. So I thought this would be a fun topic to talk about and bring you on because, well, you are boots on the ground.
I'm right in the middle of it. Yeah. So we can talk about it.
Let's do it. So I've got a few questions that I've got. Maybe you can help me answer them, and we can talk about some articles we've researched on the topic. But I know a lot of people are in construction, even though they're in engineering, and so there's probably a lot of, a lot of thoughts surrounding this issue. But let's talk about it. So, in your opinion, take us to how COVID has affected the market at like when it started. And how has it affected it now? What do you see?
Yeah. So the general construction market. So at first, when I'd say mid-March towards late March, and then first part of April of this year, everybody was just kind of trying to figure out what was going on. Nobody knew. There was a lot of fear, I would say, in the market that started building because people didn't know how bad this pandemic was going to be, how it was going to impact people's lives exactly, how bad the disease was going to be if you got it, right? And so there was a lot of fear that was kind of building, but construction,
a
lot of unknowns, but construction kind of moved along, I'll say as normally as possible. I would say that it reached kind of a pinnacle, maybe, towards May, where developers and owners of some of the larger projects started thinking, oh, wait a minute, maybe we better look at this. I know there was a few resort type projects that got put on hold. There was a couple, big residential tower type projects. And of course, we're here in Salt Lake City. That got put on hold. Just to kind of, let's make sure that the market doesn't tank and things are still viable as far as residential market. We're probably like a lot of places around the United States and where there's kind of a shortage of multifamily housing units. And so there's been kind of a big push in that arena or that area of construction. And so owners were kind of apprehensive, I would say, in that May timeframe. And then as we've gone through the summer and, the apprehension and the fear has, I would say, dissipated quite a bit. We've got a lot of people that have picked up COVID and have experienced, what it's actually like. And, there's protocols now that we're all supposed to be following. And I think most people are, and to kind of help spread the rate or help, I guess, slow down the rate of spread. And so there's all this stuff that's that people feel like it's not completely under control, but it's a little more manageable now. And so some of those projects are being started back up, and we're rolling. I mean, we're really busy right now.
It's cranking up. Would you say pre-COVID busyness or worse or the same?
I would say it's back to pre-COVID busyness. Yeah, I think we're back. And that's just my perspective. And again, this in the Salt Lake City market, and the Wasatch Front kind of area, and other people may be experiencing a little different things, but
depending on what state you're in.
Yeah,
how your governor is, what rules they have on opening things up and things of that nature. So
exactly.
All of that plays a role. I know for myself, I have been busier than ever at my workplace, and that's just because we keep being told doing more with less. And I swear, if I hear that one more time, I might lose it. But
do they ever throw out the lean and mean? We're going to stay lean and mean.
I haven't heard that one. It's always more with less. And I'm curious because a lot of people are still looking for jobs too. This is kind of a side subject, but our company where I work has put a hiring freeze and I don't know when that's going to be turned back on. But I'm curious if your work has done the same, or what have you seen?
No, we do not have a hiring freeze. In fact, I'm looking for help right now. If anybody's interested.
Ooh, structural engineer.
Yes. And I mean, we do need some help in the office. Structural engineers, project management type personnel that have engineering backgrounds. But we also need the guys with boots on the ground. We need, carpenters and laborers and those kind of guys too.
Okay. Well, if you need a job, reach out to Mark.
Yep.
Mark at civilengineeringacademy.com.
That's right.
Sweet. Well, it's interesting to hear what different industries are doing with employment. Like, I'm drowning and they won't hire anybody, and other companies are hiring people. So it's sounds like it's a mixed bag in that arena. So,
yep.
Let's talk about this then. So it sounds like things are busy now. How has COVID actually affected the construction site with employees there, or what's it like?
So we have generally had to follow our Salt Lake County recommendations and mandates. And it's the typical CDC protocols that we've had to have to follow. And it's been tough on the guys, but they've been issued, and every construction firm has just to reduce their liability, right, has, as part of their safety program, issued COVID-19 protocols that everybody's supposed to follow. And they generally follow CDC guidelines, or whatever your local municipality or your local jurisdiction is dictating. They're usually following those guidelines as part of their safety program. They want to be able to get people the PPE, right, the personal protective equipment that they require. And so right now it's frequently washing your hands, avoiding touching your eyes, practice good respiratory etiquette, right? You're covering your coughs and your sneezes, and you're avoiding
picking your nose.
Don't pick your nose.
Is that on there?
No. But that's just good practice in general.
Okay, that's good.
Avoiding the close contact, the 6-foot rule, and then the staying home if you're sick. So everybody's got that protocol that, in fact, my superintendents are having to take everybody's temperature every day. They got a little
get the thermometer,
the little laser thermometers, and they're shooting them in the head with them and getting a reading. And if they're sick, they're supposed to stay home for that 14 days. They go get tested, and then if it's confirmed that they've got the COVID-19, then they're going to be home for 2 weeks.
So that sounds like a big pain.
It is a pain. So if you're in construction, you understand that, in the contract vernacular, time is of the essence, right? And so we're trying to meet schedule, and it's just tough enough to coordinate the sequence of work that has to happen typically. And then you throw in all of this COVID-19 protocol, and it really complicates things. And so I got guys that,
is that built into the estimate now? I mean, is it affecting the bid of a job?
No, it's not so much as affecting production, I would say, yet. Then we're considering that as we look at estimating a job. Yeah. It hasn't gotten to that level yet. It's just kind of thrown in the overall safety program on a project. We have to be safe. We have to provide a safe environment for our workers to be in. And it's kind of lumped into those standard procedures. But in reality, it impacts things a lot because guys they're supposed to wear the masks. Most of them try to use those gator type masks that you can
pull down. Just the pullover.
Just the pullover. But right now in the summer, we're hitting triple digits some of these days. It's really hot, and it's tough to work with one of those on when it's hot. It's just tough. And there's a lot of job functions when you're, pouring concrete and placing rebar and setting forms, and that are strenuous activities, right? And
Yeah.
what happens when you do a strenuous activity, Isaac? What happens when you're running your 5Ks and your 10Ks
Oh
and your
man, you
marathons?
start sweating like a dog and you're breathing heavy.
You're breathing heavy. And so could you imagine, running a 10K with a mask on? It's just
not fun.
It's not fun. And so the guys are dealing with that, trying to, stay up with the protocols, but I mean, you got to get the job done, and you're breathing hard.
They're probably taking those off to get something done, I imagine.
Yes, sometimes that happens. Yep. It's like, oh, get this off.
Oh, that's well, it's good to be safe. But I guess when the job's got to get done, that's a hard spot to be in.
Yeah, it's just tough. It becomes a little impractical sometimes, I would say.
Yeah. So talking about that, what we've touched on CDC guidelines and some of the OSHA requirements. Is there any highlights there that maybe we want to touch upon?
Like as far as the protocols and how they've impacted.
Yeah, is it just following CDC guidelines mainly?
Yeah,
or does PPE affect what they can wear?
Well, they normally have eye, protection. They've got the hard hats. They've got sleeved shirts that they have to wear, right? And so really, construction workers are pretty protected already. Really, the only thing that it's doing is adding that mask that they didn't have to wear before. That's the big thing.
Gotcha.
Guys that pour concrete have to wear face shields, so that the concrete doesn't splash up into their eyes. And so they already used to wearing some of those things. We have silica standards that we have to follow. So when guys are grinding concrete, they have to wear respirators. So there are some operations where they were used to wearing masks anyway, but
that makes sense.
Yeah, this is it's kind of complicated. It just because that mask is tough to wear when it's hot and you're doing, strenuous activities.
I can't imagine on a hot summer day.
Yeah.
So that brings up another question. I mean, some of the guidelines are regarding social distancing. So how do you do social distancing when you're constructing some things? How's that work?
Well, I mean, the guys are directed not to eat. Usually they like to eat lunch together, right?
Yeah.
They'll find a cool spot somewhere and they'll sit down and they're eating lunch together. Now, we still allow that to happen, but they're all separated, 6 feet. But quite frankly, there's some operations where guys are standing close together.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. When you're actually building something or pouring something, like,
yeah, because
how can you do this?
My iron workers, I mean, there's a lot of times they got to get close to each other because they're holding the same item, whether it's rebar or a piece of structural steel or something. They're trying to put something in a position where they need to stand close to each other and do it.
Yeah, that's another one of those hard ones. I don't know how you do that.
It's just the way it is. So there are some, if you wanted to, talk about the letter of the law, and it gets violated all the time because nothing would get done if we had to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's why it's interesting to hear about how COVID-19 has affected construction and what's really like on the ground, because just some of this I just find very difficult to actually do when you're actually building something. But I want to jump into, I guess, some news articles. Let's see what they're saying. So we have dived into a few articles. One of them was from ENR. What kind of things have we seen there about COVID and construction? Some of the stuff that's come up is studies regarding the masks and things of that nature.
Well, there was this Duke University did a study. I think that's the one you're referring to, right, Isaac?
Mm-hmm.
So they tested your medical type masks, like your N95s versus what most construction workers are using for face coverings, which are those fleece kind of gaiters that go around your neck and then you pull up over your face. And they're kind of a thin fleece kind of a material. They look like, I've used them skiing. That's
usually where you see them.
Yeah. And a lot of guys use them for hunting, and they're nice in the wintertime because it keeps your neck warm and your face when you're skiing. I like them. But anyway, so they've been implemented as the actual face coverings for these guys. And there was a study from Duke University that, basically says they're not very good. They're not like an N95 or some of these medical grade masks and coverings. And so it's kind of created a little bit of confusion as to what really needs to happen.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of pot stirring regarding masks and which kind and things of that nature. There already is. I mean, if you look at social media, everyone's got an opinion about what masks do and how they are. And
do the cloth masks work or do they not? And, do you have to have a medical grade like the N95? And even, they even question those if they really work, if they're effective. So, yeah, I mean, it's affected construction like I would say every other aspect in society. It's just, I don't know. It's just not a lot of, I guess, hard science that's dictated one way or the other on some of this stuff. But we do have this Duke University study that actually tested these gaiters, and they're saying they're not that great.
Well, and it sounds like from other articles that COVID has really affected construction, globally, not only just where we're at, but all over the place.
Yep.
And so, these studies that we're reading about are interesting to dive into. If anybody wants to go check them out, you can go to ENR, their magazine, their online website as well. And go
Engineering News Record.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Is there anything else about COVID and construction that would be noteworthy to talk about?
Yeah. So, let's talk about guys that have actually gotten the disease, right?
Sure. Yeah. What happens then?
We've had some of that actually happen on our job sites. And I would say it's been a mixed bag. So I've had guys that have actually contracted it, and we followed protocol. They were identified, they got their tests done. And then they stayed home for 2 weeks, right? Following standard protocol. Once they got better, they were allowed to come back. And I've had guys that have told me that it's as bad as maybe having some bad allergies. Like they just say, you know what? I felt a little under the weather for 2 or 3 days, and then I was done.
Wow.
And then I've had a couple guys that said, it's kind of like it's probably one of the worst flus I've ever had, kind of a thing. It's more of a bad flu for them, but no fatalities, nothing like that. Just kind of a range of guys that have their bodies respond different ways to the disease, but some it's just been very, very mild, and others it's hit them a little bit harder. But it's just been interesting to see the range of responses.
Yeah, that's true. So what is, if somebody contracts it then and they're on the construction site, does everybody that works around them also quarantine, or is it just that individual?
They all have to get tested. Anybody who's been in proximity to that individual, which, I've got different crews, and so you can identify fairly easily who's been contacted by whatever individual and been in proximity. And so everybody gets tested for the virus at that point. And
my workplace, when it first was around, if one person contracted it, they sent that group whoever was around them was sent home for quarantine. And I think now that we know more, there's been more testing, and it just has just been around for a lot longer.
Right.
That you're getting a little more specific on just that person and things of that nature. So that's good to know.
Yeah. So to me, it's always just been interesting in seeing the varied reactions. It's not like, you get the disease and you know it's going to hit you hard and you're going to be down for 2 weeks and it's going to be this tough battle like a big bad flu. I mean, sometimes people are asymptomatic
Allergies.
too. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, I had it, it felt like I had some bad allergies and that was it. I was done.
Wow. Yeah, and then you read that it's like 1,000 times worse than the flu. It's like the worst thing ever. So, or people that have continual symptoms even past the 14, 15 days. So
Yeah,
you read all kinds of things. So that's interesting. Well, I know, this has definitely affected people personally. It's affected the construction world. It's interesting just from your perspective how it's affected things on the ground in the construction sites. And it's been definitely enlightening for me to hear about what's going on out there. So cool. Good. Is there anything else you want to hit on COVID in construction?
COVID in construction, just everybody stay healthy and stay happy and productive. And I mean, it's definitely a concern. And we're going to get through it, and it stinks if, you've got loved ones that have been seriously affected by this thing. I mean, it's a bad deal. But I think as a whole, we're going to be able to get through this and we'll look back 10 years from now and go, phew, 2020, that was a crazy year.
The toilet paper shortage of 2020 and all that jazz.
That's
well, most people didn't have to go through an earthquake like we did in Utah. It was like COVID, earthquake, no toilet paper. So
Armageddon, man.
It was bad. Anyway, cool. Well, thanks for jumping on again. This was a fun one to talk about, and hopefully our audience able to learn a few things.
Okay, cool, man.
All right, see ya.
See ya.
Okay, we stopped the recording. That was good. Yeah, that was really good. That was long too. So, thumbs up all around for everybody.